Hello, my friend. Welcome to your sleep story. My name is Stephen Dalton. I'm an Irish storyteller, and it's my great privilege to be the voice that you listen to as you go to sleep tonight. Tonight we return to an old favorite of the channel, Hope. And if you haven't heard of Hope before, it doesn't matter. Each day in Hope's life stands on its own. Hope is a lady who lives in a cabin, a cozy cabin in the woods, with her dog Fred and her cat Melissa. She lives a simple life, a life where she gets to really enjoy nature and all that life can offer in its simplest form. Today, for the first time, we meet Hope on a snowy day. Hope, Fred and Melissa are happily cozy in their little cabin, and I really hope you like this story. Okay, let's do the relaxation session now, which will take a few minutes before tonight's sleep story. I'm going to count down from 10 to 1, and as I do, allow yourself to let go more and more. 10. Feel the support of the bed beneath you, or the floor, or whatever you lie upon tonight. And beneath all of that, feel the support of the earth, our home, our constant support. And as you become aware of that constantness, see if it enables you to let go a little more now, to release. 9. You are safe. Allow my voice to be an anchor of safety tonight, to be a friend. Know that my voice will only ever take you to safe places. And as you become aware of that fact, surrender a little more now to this moment. This is an opportunity for real rest in a safe space. 8. Tune into your body now. See where you are still holding, whether it be tension or pain. Allow a gradual release to occur. Maybe it's in your feet, or maybe it's in your lower legs, or your thighs, or your belly, or your chest, or your hands, or your arms, or your shoulders and neck. Or maybe you're like me and you hold tension in your face. Just release now wherever it may be. 7. The day is done. Whatever has been, has been. Whatever will be, will be. So just allow yourself now to know that thoughts are a part of you, a part of being human. They will arrive and they can go just as easily. So whatever thoughts you might be having about the past or the future, accept them for what they are. Thoughts. Don't fight them. See them arrive and let them go. Watch them float away like leaves on a moonlit river, or clouds passing in a starlit sky. 6. This is your moment. This is your time. You have nowhere to go now, nowhere to be, no obligations. So, enjoy that fact. Enjoy and luxuriate in that fact, and allow it to enable you to sink further and further towards deep, rejuvenating rest. 5. Peace lives within you. It is always there. It is your constant friend, just waiting to be found. See if you can feel that peace tonight. See if you can see it. And allow it to spread throughout you. 4. Perhaps allow a little gratitude now. Gratitude for this moment. Gratitude for the simple things. The shelter you have tonight. The ability to rest. 3. Begin to engage with your imagination now. Begin to see snow, lots of beautiful snow, and within that snow, a forest, and within that forest, a beautiful, cozy cabin, and on the porch of the cabin, a lady sits with a blanket around her next to her dog and her cat, and she has all that she needs in this moment. 2. Feel into your body one more time now. Your body has worked hard for you today. It's time to give it rest. And one, completely letting go now, as I tell you tonight's sleep story. Hope sits quietly on the porch, her elbows resting on her knees, her hands clasped around a mug that radiates warmth. Snow is falling, not in a dramatic flurry, but steadily, with a kind of quiet purpose. The flakes melt on the edge of the railing, but start to gather on the uneven stack of logs by the cabin wall. Fred, her dog, is at her feet, lying on his side, his ears twitching every so often, as though keeping an ear out for her. Melissa is perched on the bench, her tail curled neatly around her paws, watching the snow with a half-lidded, thoughtful expression. The wind moves through the trees with a sound that isn't loud enough to disturb. It's the kind of wind you notice more by its effect. The slight ripple across the surface of the snow, or the way it seems to carry the faint creak of branches. Hope watches it all without hurry. She tilts her head slightly, taking in the way the world feels smaller today, wrapped in a pale grey sky and softened by the snow. It isn't loneliness she feels. Far from it. It's the stillness of a morning that expects nothing from her. The mug in her hands is a familiar comfort, its edges worn smooth from years of use. She raises it slowly and takes a sip, her focus on the act itself rather than the taste. Fred's tail gives a lazy wag as she lowers the mug, as if he's pleased to see her at ease. She lets her free hand drift to the top of his head, absently scratching the spot between his ears where his fur is softest. He leans into the touch with a low sigh. Melissa stands suddenly, arching her back in an exaggerated stretch, before finally settling down again, her eyes flicking toward the snow-covered trees. Hope smiles faintly, as though the little cat has just reminded her to shift her own posture. She straightens a bit, rolling her shoulders as her gaze drifts to the woods beyond. She knows this view well. Every cluster of trees, every rise and dip of the land. And yet, it feels different today, as though the snow has pressed pause on the world, allowing her to see it in a way she doesn't always. For a while, she simply sits, her breath rising in soft clouds that disappear into the air. No plans are forming in her mind. There's no list of tasks waiting to be tackled. Today feels like a gift, one that doesn't ask for anything in return. Fred shifts beside her, his head resting on her boot now, and she feels grateful for his quiet companionship. There's no rush to move, no reason to break the spell of the morning, so she doesn't. Hope then reaches for her leather-bound journal that rests on the small side table next to her. It's worn and familiar, the corners slightly turned, the elastic band stretched from years of use. She flips it open, the pages fluttering softly until she finds a blank one. With a pencil she keeps tucked into the binding, she begins to write, her hand moving slowly and deliberately across the page. I remember that day in 1973, she writes, when Harry and I played in the snow behind the house. It had started snowing the night before, and by morning, the fields were blanketed in white. Dad had already shoveled a path to the barn, and we followed his footprints for a while. But soon, we couldn't resist jumping into the deeper snow on either side. leaving our own crooked trails behind us. Harry was only 6 then, small for his age, but full of energy that no snowdrift could hold back. He was bundled up so tightly that he looked like a little blue marshmallow, his scarf trailing behind him as he ran. I remember how he kept falling over, the snow too soft to get any traction. But every time he'd pop back up, laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. "Come on, Hope," he'd yell, even though I was only a step behind him. "You're too slow." We spent hours building a fort at the edge of the field, where the old oak tree stood. The snow there was perfect, sticky enough to pack into solid walls, but soft enough that we didn't have to work too hard. I can still see Harry's red mittens, covered in frost, as he patted the snow into place. He kept telling me it was going to be the best fort ever, though it was really just a lopsided pile of snow with a hole in the middle. To us, it was perfect. At some point, Mom came out to check on us, wearing her big green coat and those boots she always said were too ugly to wear in town. She brought us mugs of hot chocolate in old tin cups, and we sat on the snowy ground to drink it, our gloves making it hard to hold the handles. The chocolate was too hot at first, so we blew on it, watching the steam curl up into the cold air. Harry spilled half of his down the front, but he didn't care. "Keeps me warm," he said with a grin. By the time the sun started dipping behind the hills, we were soaked through, our noses red and our fingers stiff. But we didn't want to go inside. Dad finally came to drag us back, his voice half stern, but his face full of that quiet amusement he always had when we were being stubborn. Back inside, Mom had a pot of stew bubbling on the stove, and the warmth of the kitchen felt like stepping into a different world. I can still feel the way my cheeks tingled as they thawed, the way Harry fell asleep at the table before he even finished his bowl. I think about that day sometimes. How simple it all was. How happy we were just to be out in the snow, making something that would be gone by morning. It reminds me that joy doesn't need to last forever to matter. Some things are meant to melt, to slip away with the changing seasons. But that doesn't make them any less real. Hope sets down the pencil and looks out at the snow, the memory lingering like a warm ember in her chest. Fred stirs at her feet, shifting closer, while Melissa stretches and jumps onto her lap, settling herself, as though she knows it's time for Hope to sit and think a little longer. "All right, boy," Hope says softly, slipping on her boots and wrapping her shawl tightly around her shoulders. "Let's take a walk." Melissa stirs from her cozy perch, stretching languidly before hopping down and padding toward the door. She sits there, her tail flicking indecisively as she looks from Hope to the snow-covered world outside. "Coming with us, Melissa?" Hope asks, bending down to scratch behind the cat's ears. Melissa chirps a little meow, as if weighing her options, then takes one delicate step outside before freezing on the porch. Her paws touch the snow for all of a second before she retreats to the doorway, sitting primly, as if to say, "I'll wait here, thank you." Hope chuckles. "Suit yourself." Fred bounds ahead as Hope steps off the porch, his sturdy frame cutting through the snow with ease. She follows at a steady pace, the crunch of her boots against the snow, breaking the otherwise quiet morning. The cabin fades behind them as they move deeper into the forest. The tall pines stretching upward, beautiful, majestic. The wind has calmed, though it still moves gently through the trees, shaking loose a few flakes that drift lazily to the ground. Hope pulls her shawl closer around her shoulders and exhales, watching her breath mingle with the cool air before vanishing. Fred stops now and then to sniff at a patch of snow or paw at something half buried beneath it. He looks back at Hope often, as if checking to make sure she's still there, his tail wagging steadily with the quiet joy of a dog simply being outside. As they walk, Hope lets her mind wander. The rhythm of her steps and the steady presence of Fred grounding her. The forest feels both vast and intimate, like it only belongs to her and Fred in this moment. A squirrel darts across her path, quick as a blink, and Fred perks up, but doesn't chase it. Instead, he looks to Hope, his dark eyes bright and expectant. She smiles and kneels to rub his ears. "Good boy," she murmurs, her voice low and warm. They continue on, the snow falling more lightly now, the flakes catching on her shawl and in Fred's fur. The forest seems alive, not with noise, but with presence, branches creaking softly, and the light wind blowing through the trees. She doesn't think about turning back just yet. There is no rush, no schedule to keep, just the snow, the trees, and Fred's steady companionship. And that, she feels, is enough. Hope walks on for a while longer, letting the woods guide her steps. The trees are familiar, yet each time she ventures out here, there's something about the landscape that feels new. The snow changes everything. The way the ground lies, the way the light filters through the branches, even the air itself. She pauses to lean against a thick pine, its bark rough under her gloved hand. Fred circles back to her, his breath puffing in small clouds as he nudges her leg with his nose. "All right, boy," she says softly, pushing off the tree. let's head back. The return walk feels different, quieter somehow. Though the snow still falls and Fred still bounds ahead, Hope notices the slight curve of the path she made earlier. Her boot prints now softened at the edges by the fresh snow. She follows them back toward the clearing, watching as her cabin begins to emerge from behind the trees, small and steady against the wintry landscape. Melissa is waiting on the porch when they arrive, her tail curled neatly around her paws, as though she hasn't moved an inch since they left. Hope smiles at the sight of her, and Melissa rises, stretching with deliberate slowness before slipping back inside as Hope opens the door. The warmth of the cabin greets her instantly, and she shrugs off her shawl, hanging it on the hook near the door. Fred shakes himself off with a vigorous wag of his tail before padding toward his usual spot by the fireplace. Hope moves to the kitchen, her fingers tingling slightly from the cold as she fills a small bowl with leftover stew. It's simple fare, rich and hearty, and she eats it standing at the counter, enjoying the quiet hum of the house around her. After tidying her bowl, she goes into the living room and turns her attention to the hearth. The wood pile by the fireplace is neatly stacked, and she selects a few pieces, arranging them carefully before striking a match. The fire catches slowly, but soon it crackles to life. She settles into her favorite chair with a thick blanket pulled over her lap. Melissa jumping up to curl beside her. Fred stretches out on the rug, his nose resting on his paws as his eyes drift closed. The light outside has shifted, the day giving way to the soft shadows of evening. Through the window, the snow still falls, the sky growing darker with each passing moment. The cabin feels small and safe, cocooned in the quiet of winter. Hope leans back in her chair, her hands resting lightly on Melissa's fur, and lets herself sink into the stillness of the moment as day fades into night. After some time, Hope picks up a book from the small side table beside her chair. Its cover depicting a snowy forest scene with the title embossed in faded gold letters. She opens it to a chapter she's marked with a slip of paper, one titled "The Bear in Winter." Settling deeper into her chair, she begins to read, the words unfolding in her mind. In the deep winter, the bear is hidden away in its den, a place chosen with care long before the first snow fell. This den might be beneath the sheltering roots of a great tree, or within a hollowed-out cave tucked into the slope of a hill. Wherever it is a sanctuary, insulated by layers of earth, leaves, and the bear's own thick fur. The bear spends these months in a state of torpor, its body slowed, but not entirely asleep. Its heart beats faintly, each pulse measured, like a drum heard from a great distance. Though it does not eat, its body draws from the rich stores of fat it accumulated during the long, busy days of autumn. For the bear, winter is a time of stillness, a time to retreat from the world and let the forest carry on without its wandering presence. Yet, the bear does not always stay in this deep stillness. Sometimes on warmer days, when the sun touches the snow just enough to soften it, the bear may stir. Slowly, it might rise, lumbering to the mouth of its den to peer out at the muted world. There, it will sniff the air, taking in the scents of winter, the faint trace of pine, the distant rustle of something small moving beneath the snow. If the bear ventures further, it moves cautiously, each step deliberate. It might press its muzzle to the frozen ground, seeking a stray root or a scrap of bark, though its hunger is not pressing. More often, it simply stands for a while, its massive form blending into the starkness of the trees, before retreating once more to the safety of the den. Even in these brief moments of wakefulness, the bear does not stray far. It knows instinctively that winter is a season to conserve, to endure, to wait. And so, the bear returns to its sanctuary, curling into itself, its breath slow and steady. Outside, the snow continues to fall. The days turn quietly to nights, and the world goes on in a rhythm. The bear is content to let pass. Hope closes the book gently, her fingers still marking the page as she gazes into the fire. She imagines the bear, tucked away in its den, surrounded by the quiet of the winter woods. The image feels both distant and familiar, as though it mirrors the stillness she feels now in her own small cabin. Fred lets out a soft sigh, shifting in his sleep, and Melissa purrs faintly against her side. For a moment, Hope sits in silence, letting the words linger in her mind, feeling connected to the quiet patience of the bear in winter. The fire crackles softly, its warmth spreading through the little cabin, casting a gentle glow on the walls. The snow continues to fall outside, but the world beyond feels far away now, wrapped in its own quiet slumber. Hope shifts in her chair, pulling the blanket higher over her shoulders. Her body sinking deeper into the soft, worn cushions. Fred stirs at her feet, lifting his head briefly before letting it fall back onto his paws with a quiet huff. His slow, rhythmic breathing matches the calm atmosphere of the room, his warmth radiating through the thick rug he rests on. Melissa, still curled up against Hope's side, lets out a long, contented sigh, her tail twitching once before she nestles closer. The faint rumble of her purring filling the stillness. Hope's eyes begin to flutter closed, the book resting in her lap. She feels the weight of the day slipping away, replaced by a drowsy heaviness that she doesn't try to resist. Fred's presence at her feet and Melissa's warmth against her side anchor her in this moment. A small, perfect circle of comfort and safety. As sleep takes her, her breathing slows, steady and peaceful. The fire continues its quiet song, the blanket draped over her like a cocoon, and the snow falls on the forest beyond the cabin, hushed and still. Inside, the three companions rest together, surrounded by warmth and calm. The small cabin, a world unto itself.